Welcome back, everybody. It's Jason with Happy Tales. As you saw last week, we did part one of our aviation museum that we saw here in Virginia Beach. Phenomenal place. It was just so awesome. I think that's probably the best word for it. And it was a little slow. There was just so many planes and just stuff to really take in. I wasn't quite sure on how to lay that one out. This one is really neat. We're going to go through two different hangars. One is going to be a replica of a British hangar of the time period. And then the second one is actually a German Nazi aircraft hangar that they disassembled piece by piece and brought it back. And, some of the parts didn't make it, but all the girders are all the same. The doors are original. Just some of the outside skirting they had to replace. But other than that, it's phenomenal. And some of the stuff that's inside that second hangar, well, both of the hangars, is just awesome. So I hope you guys enjoy. And without further ado, here we go.
And of course, it would be a dirt floor. We don't have a dirt floor. And we actually have a bathroom in here. So when we come around to the right, anybody needs to use the restrooms, we've got men's and ladies' restrooms. Come on in.
Found us, huh?
We did.
Good job.
So in the attempt to reconstruct a British hangar here, of course it had to meet construction codes and Virginia Beach hurricane requirements. So it's a pretty sturdy ceiling, maybe a little bit more so than originally. But the basic structure is quite similar to what was used way back when. Again, restrooms are right there. And as I mentioned before, virtually all these airplanes are replicas, except for two of them that we've got over here, and we'll point out to you. Aircraft in this time frame were really experimental. They didn't quite know what was going to work, so you're going to see triplanes, three wings, biplanes, 2 wings, and monoplanes. And as time went on and they began to figure out what works, what doesn't work, things changed. Along the way, they also lost an awful lot of pilots. So the lifespan back then was pretty short. What we want you to do in here is just kind of cut you loose to wander around inside the hangar, and we're going to wander around with you. As you have any specific questions about anything, we're happy to explain it to you. Most of these airplanes in the original version started with what was called a rotary engine. And we have an example of that over here where the entire engine turned with a propeller. These replicas, they put radial engines in, which is a much better way to go, a big advancement. And we can talk about the differences in the advantages and disadvantages. Also, you'll see a lot of these aircraft have machine guns that fire through the arc of the propeller. And that was a big deal, because it's not good if it hits the propeller. So they had to figure out a way, camshaft, and we've got a little simplified example over here on the wall as to how they did that. So please feel free to wander around. We'll split ourselves up to answer questions. And like the sign says, the history question all over the place.
About 15 minutes, folks, and we'll go next door, okay?
Well, it's got a, it's like epoxy over it.
Nothing but luxury in these airplanes.
Yeah.
It's just you and a t-shirt keeping you from the wind.
Yeah.
Now, take it to the side and get this in it too. That's it.
Did you guys build most of the replicas here, or?
Mostly they come from all over the place.
Do they?
And there are still experts out there who can do this. They used to have kits you could buy, and you put your own engine in and everything, but it still takes some craftsmanship and some expertise.
Oh, I can imagine.
But you can imagine being the maintenance guy, because every one of these is unique. Like, oh my goodness, who did what?
Absolutely.
So they're all kind of, you know, individuals. On the other hand, they're simple compared to anything.
Modern day, yes.
Take the good with the bad.
Some flaps on all three. It's all cantilevered.
We have kids nowadays, if they know about Snoopy and the Red Baron, a lot of them don't.
Yeah.
Really scary.
Yep.
Like, what?
Yep.
What? I did not know that.
What was that? Yeah.
Exactly. How am I going to tell you the Red Baron and, you know, the Snoopy and the doghouse story?
And it's amazing what they don't know that they're missing out on.
I always thought he's talking about look at the cam between shooting. I always thought it was just a Hollywood prop, you know. The-
Oh, yeah.
Ford. Right there. See, like this one only has flaps on the top.
Boss loves his triplanes. You'll see 3 of them here. He's got another one out for maintenance too. We're the only place you can put a 4-ship up.
Wow. Compass down by his feet. He's got a compass down by the feet.
104 this summer. Isn't that something?
Yeah, I'm sure
This is over 100 years old, an original airplane.
Early on, they tried all kinds of different ones. They kind of standardized on a very thick weave Italian linen, Irish linen, which was really strong but still light. They used for the build one, really strong, really stiff. So that kind of became the standard for many decades. The bad news is that dope keeps trying to stretch it until it wins one day. So every 20 years or so, you have to discover it, and they just basically break apart. Like hanging clothes on the clothesline. How many years can you do that before they fall apart, right?
All these wires, wings, and all this stuff come in on a crank.
Oh, yeah.
So there's not a lot of speed.
Add a picture of Miss Quimby. Harriet was a fashion icon in her day.
How do you create lift? They figured that out. But then they figured out.
People wonder why there's no canvas on the back, because every bit of it weighs something. When you're trying to save weight, you don't need it back there.
Yeah, true.
Back when you only had 30 horsepower, it didn't matter.
Oh, wow. He was talking about the cam to the machine gun. Now, how did that?
Yeah, I'll show you. This is a simplified version, but when you first think of it, how do I get a machine gun to fire without hitting the propeller? It seems daunting. You can't do it. Until you see the answer and you go, well, why didn't I think of that? And basically, Anthony Fokker came up with this design where he put a bump on either side, and each time through, when a propeller would be in front of the gun, it would send a little signal to the trigger, and it would put a little plate between the firing pin and the back of the bullet. So all the pilot has to do is squeeze the trigger now, and it figures out the rest. So every time passed, it'll fire until the next one comes up. And it didn't matter what speed it was going, because it would just do it basically as fast as the propeller was going. So brilliant design. If you had two or more, you'd make extra set of bumps,
Right.
and then it would work the same way. But quite amazing invention. The good news was now all the machine gun bullets can be aimed. The bad news is you're still sitting on your gas tank and you're flying a piece of cloth. So the kill rate was incredible for a while until guys learned how to fly.
Yeah.
Huh.
Because you didn't have any armor
No.
or parachute.
Oh, really? No parachutes?
But I do know that
Some of the observation balloons and others came up with it, but it was just too heavy to fly with and too bulky.
Yeah.
So they said,
You don't need it.
Well, when
I
you
live by the seat of my pants.
Yeah.
that small of a cockpit, you know.
yeah, it's hard to get out of too, because you're wearing exposure gear and flight stuff. So it was generally a rule you carried a pistol.
And these, except for the ones that are hanging from the rafters, are still airworthy. This is a canvas skin with a doping over the top of it that they replace about every 20 years, or as they see things cracking. The exhaust right by your ear.
Yeah, right. And when they start doing tail gunners, and find ways to get that excited.
That's interesting, some of the stuff they had, like, thing up front.
Sure, for radio captain, water flow. Everything
104.
Read about the area? Designs where, you know, 1 through 10 were kind of a little bit of this, a little bit of that, and 11 was kind of hit the mark. And you take that
When you're making repairs, you can see if anybody else for a few days would still
Somewhat portable. Can be moved around, set up in a hurry somewhere. A few unique features inside that we'll point out. And really, this is a piece of history. We're not memorializing anything. It's just, this is history right here.
Welcome to Germany.
Well, that's where the WW2. This is the aircraft I was going to point out to you that was outside. There's stuff in there. They're always moving airplanes around on this. Every time I come, it's set up there. First thing we're going to talk about is this cannon over here, 88 millimeter. And we were just talking about this thing earlier, and the real history of it, well, now we're debating. Allegedly, it was on a transport ship that was captured and it was taken to Spain. Now we're not quite so sure. But the cool thing about this, I think, is it's actually functional today. So during the big air show that should have happened except for the hurricane, they'll pull this thing out and they'll load it up with blank shells and they'll fire it off. And we apparently have a crew of people that know how to work it. So, pretty cool. Got a generator down there. Painted up to go along with this. We assume they went together. We're not sure. The generator, of course, will be used to power that searchlight back there. And apparently this is a very effective anti-aircraft gun. So that's it. We've got a lot of Messerschmitt aircraft in here. This aircraft, which I was referring to earlier, we'll get a better look at it as we walk around the front. It was actually built in Spain, but it is a Ju-52, a Junkers, and it's like a Ford Triumph, very similar in design. We'll walk around this way. Aerobatic and competition airplane. I don't know that it had anything to do with the war at all. But it's a very cool biplane, high performance. Kind of like a Spitz or something like that. This is not a German airplane. What is this one again?
Fleet 2 by Consolidated.
Yeah, and allegedly Amelia Earhart might have flown in
We
that.
would love to prove that, yes.
Yeah, that's
Imagine the
rumor.
value if that's true.
It's a rumor.
But apparently Paul Mantz and Amelia were, shall we say, a little bit more than friends. They didn't write down everything that they did together, so we think they flew this airplane together.
And this airplane was used in several movies and TV shows. So if you're a fan of Magnum P.I., apparently he flew in the back end of this thing. And it was used during this show. I have never been up close, this far close up to the Junkers. So this is new to me also. Very cool. Well, yeah, a whole lot. You know, this is probably been put in here for the hurricane, wasn't it?
Yeah, I think they were
I bet it was.
working that.
Yeah.
It's not an easy feat to get those doors up to them.
That's why this is in here. Cool airplane. To me, fascinating aerodynamic design, the way the flaps and the ailerons are set up. Very unique. Not something I'm very familiar with.
What was the idea behind the corrugated?
Strength. Imagine, it's not going to bend against this corrugation type thing. That's what I understand.
Same as the, remember the Ford truck motor?
Yeah.
Same kind of skin. Duraloom came later, it was much stronger, but this is the original way they made it strength. But if you look at the trailing edge of the wing, you can see where water would get in there, and corrosion would be a huge issue, but it was very strong.
And at least they were smart enough to make the corrugations this way.
Yeah. It's not luxurious.
So this is what we call a trim tab. You notice it's like a little subset to the aileron. And so you can maneuver this up and down from the cockpit to make the aileron line up with the airflow. And in this case, if you've got a yoke up there, you might have to hold the yoke this way. Now you move this little trim tab and the yoke comes around and you can let go. And it flies nice and straight. After World War I, the Germans weren't allowed to have fighting forces. They weren't allowed to have an air force or anything. They had great engineers, and so they built airplanes like this, and they trained civilian pilots. And they trained quite a crew. And again, it's my understanding that this airplane right here is really a fighter jet, but with a big cockpit and seats inside, so they could train. So that by the time World War II came around, it's really cool with all these trained pilots and high performance airplanes. We've got another version. This is the tail wheel. We have another version on the other side. That's another nose gear. That ring a bell with anybody? Well, this was an inscription from a Polish laborer who was forced to work here and put this thing up in Germany. And when they took it down in Germany and shipped it back over here, they found that this guy had inscribed his name or initials, or he wrote, what did he say? Whatever that says in German. So they went to the effort to find, where is this guy? And apparently they did find him, but not in time. He passed away because they wanted to talk to him about what was going on here. But it's pretty cool that they found his writing up there in the structural part of the wing. Also the stuff that you see hanging from the ceiling. All replicas, stuff that the Germans were thinking about building. And with various purposes, manned, unmanned, attack the bombers. You can see they were really forward thinking in a lot of their stuff. It's a good thing the war ended when it did.
Yes.
Another German trainer here.
Now, is that a rotary or? No,
That would be a radio engine.
Yeah.
And what really tells you, you've got intake and exhaust valves, valve train out here. And besides if I move the prop. So the rotaries were replaced pretty quickly with other meters. This is definitely the best move you're going to get at this area. Usually it's outside.
Kind of like the human touch to it.
This is another
Is it what all the bullet holes? Or?
Oh, there's history that's in this room.
This thing, I believe, is called a storch.
Yes, peaceful torch.
Which is like a stork. Unique in the folding wings, which you can see there. And you see the leading edge slap down the front edge of the wing. This is an aircraft that could take off in a very short distance, very low airspeed. And it was used for transport.
The rumor is that General Montgomery had one of these things in Bridgeport.
You know, those leading edge devices,
Yeah,
that's really modern stuff.
Unfortunately, the engine's out right now getting worked on, but if you've ever seen an inverted V8 air-cooled, that's what this had. Like, what? Pretty neat. Lots of power.
They had to fly upside down.
Yeah, exactly.
But the interior looks pretty darn good. I think.
Anybody know what rescue Mussolini was doing? Up in Italy. And their special ops of the day. Go anywhere, do anything. Don't tell anybody.
This aircraft, where was it? Finland, Norway. And crashed. The pilot was killed, and they pulled it out, brought it back. It's given it's been crashed, not in bad shape. I guess allegedly to restore it. I think we have a restored version of this, don't we?
The one of rockets, yes.
Yes. Very high performance, good flying fighter plane. And I'll call your attention to what looks like bullet holes. Any questions?
I can tell one more story over here, Steve.
Absolutely.
You guys want to come around this way? A little keep right that way.
You got a window dance, I think, under this wing. Right here. I don't even get around the back.
Where did you?
Yeah, I'm looking.
Oh.
Whoever parked these has an evil sense of humor. Neighbors get really upset when we fire live rounds out of
I bet.
So we try to remember to do blanks. It's hard to remember that.
What's the significance of the bomb?
That was the Africa Corps symbol. And you can see that on motorcycles and all their military equipment. It was kind of, you know, the Russians have a big Z on their tanks now when they're in Ukraine. That's the same kind of thing. Something about the replicas. Late in the war, the Germans were losing. They were trying to come up with a cheap and quick way to make a bunch of advanced stuff to take down bombers and do other roles for them. And the War Ministry gave these guys 3 months to go from nothing to a flying example using untested, engines and wooden construction and forced labor and the whole bit. And they actually did it. So it's kind of amazing. Some of the things they did, this is was supposedly the Stuka replacement. So heavily armored that the cockpit is actually these little red rectangles in the back you can barely see out of it. This is the Blom & Voss interceptor with a pulse jet engine, same as in the B-1. This would be a flying bomb that you drop in the middle of a